Hi, Quinn. It's Grandpa Corey, and guess what? I have another book to read for you. I know Blink wants to help read a book too. Okay, so guess what? The book that I have tonight is called The Tale of Peter Rabbit. And when I was a little boy, this was my favorite book, so I hope you really enjoy it. So I don't know if you've already read this one, but I think you might like it. It's called The Tale of Peter Rabbit, and it's by Beatrix Potter. And this is a story that has been around for a really long time. And I think you're really going to like it. Okay, let's start. Are you ready? All right. It says, once upon a time, there was 4 little rabbits, and their names were Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. They lived with their mother in a sandbank under the root of a very big fir tree. See right there? There they all are, and there's the big tree, and they live right there. And then we'll turn the page. Sometimes Grandpa Randy has a heart. Grandpa Randy? That's your great Grandpa Randy. I'm Grandpa Corey. Okay. Now page 2. And there's Peter Rabbit again. Now, my dears, said old Mrs. Rabbit one morning, you may go into the fields or down the lane, but don't go into Mr. McGregor's garden. Your father had an accident there, and he was put in a pie by Miss Gregor. Now run along and don't get into mischief. If I'm going out, then old Miss Rabbit took a basket and her umbrella and went through the woods to the baker's. She bought a loaf of brown bread and 5 currant buns. Floppy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, who were good little bunnies, went down the lane to gather blackberries. See, there they are. They're the good little bunnies, and they're gathering blackberries. And there's Mama Rabbit. And who do you think this is way over here? I bet that might be Peter Rabbit. But Peter, who was very naughty, ran straight away to Mr. McGregor's garden and squeezed under the gate. See right there? He's squeezing under the gate, and his mom told him no. First he ate some lettuce and some French beans, and then he ate some radishes. And then, feeling rather sick, he went to look for some parsley. I didn't know rabbits eat parsley. Did you know that? But around the end of a cucumber frame, whom should he meet but Mr. McGregor? Uh-oh. There he comes. There's Mr. McGregor, and he's got a rake, and he's chasing Peter Rabbit. Mr. McGregor was on his hands and knees planting young cabbages, but he jumped up and ran after Peter Rabbit, waving a rake and calling out, "Stop, thief!" Peter was dreadfully frightened. He rushed all over the garden, for he had forgotten the way back to the gate. Uh-oh. He lost one of his shoes among the cabbages and the other shoe among the potatoes. After losing them, he ran on 4 legs and went faster so that he might have gotten away if he had not, unfortunately, run into a gooseberry net and got caught by the large buttons on his jacket. It was a blue jacket with brass buttons and quite new. Peter gave himself up for lost and shed big tears, but his sobs were overheard by some friendly sparrows who flew to him in great excitement and begged him to try and free himself. See, look, there's Peter Rabbit, and there's his blue jacket, and there's the gooseberry net. It keeps the birds from eating all the gooseberries, but Peter Rabbit is trapped. And there's the sparrows. They're talking to him, and they're saying, "Peter Rabbit, hurry, you've got to get away." Mr. McGregor found a sieve, which he intended to put on top of Peter. But Peter wiggled out just in time, leaving his jacket behind him. There's Peter Rabbit getting out of his jacket, and there's the sieve. He's getting away. Uh-oh, and he left his jacket. Peter Rabbit doesn't have a jacket anymore. Peter rushed into the tool shed and jumped onto a watering can. It would have been a beautiful thing to hide in if it had not had so much water in it. But Mr. McGregor was quite sure that Peter was somewhere in the tool shed, perhaps hidden underneath a flower pot. He began to turn them over carefully, looking under each. Suddenly, Peter sneezed. Achoo! That was Peter Rabbit. He sneezed, and there's the watering can, and he's trying to hide. And there's the flower pots that Mr. McGregor was turning over, trying to find him. Mr. McGregor was after him in no time. He tried to catch Peter, who jumped out a window, upsetting 3 plants. The window was too small for Mr. McGregor, and he was tired of running after Peter, so he went back to work. Peter sat down to rest. He was out of breath and trembling with fright, and he had no idea which way to go. Also, he was very damp from sitting in that can. Remember, the can had all the water in it. After a time, he began to wander about, going lippity-lippity, not very fast, and looking around. There's Peter Rabbit. He's being chased. See the foot? And there's the flower pots, and he's just barely getting away. Boy, Peter Rabbit must have been scared. He found a door in a wall, but it was locked, and there was no room for a fat little rabbit to squeeze underneath. An old mouse was running in and out over the stone doorstep, carrying peas and beans to her family in the woods. Peter asked her the way to the gate, but she had such a large pea in her mouth that she could not answer. She only shook her head at him, and Peter began to cry. Then he tried to find his way straight across the garden, but he came more and more puzzled. Presently, he came to a pond. A white cat was staring at some goldfish. She sat very, very still, but now and then the tip of her tail twitched as if it was alive. Peter thought it best to go away without speaking to her. He had heard about cats from his cousin, little Benjamin Bunny. There's the kitty, there's the white kitty, and there's the kitty's tail, and there's the mouse, and I don't know if you can see, but there's a pea in the mouse's mouth, and she just can't talk. What a beautiful garden Mr. McGregor has, huh? No wonder Peter Rabbit wanted to go in there and eat all the food. He went back towards the tool shed, but suddenly, quite close to him, he heard the noise of a hoe. Scratch! 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 Scritch! Peter scuttered underneath the bushes, but soon as nothing happened, he came out and climbed upon the wheelbarrow and peeped out. And the first thing he saw was Mr. McGregor hoeing onions. His back was turned towards Peter, and beyond him was the gate. There's Peter Rabbit, he's hiding, and there's Mr. McGregor working in the garden, and all the way over here is the gate, and Peter Rabbit has to get all the way to the gate without Mr. McGregor catching him. Do you think he's going to make it? I hope so. Let's find out. Peter got down very quietly off the wheelbarrow and started running as fast as he could go, along a straight walk behind some blackberry bushes. Mr. McGregor caught sight of him at the corner, but Peter did not care. He slipped underneath the gate and was safe at last in the woods outside the garden. Mr. McGregor hung up the little jacket and shoes as a scarecrow to frighten the blackbirds. See, there's Peter Rabbit, and there's Mr. McGregor chasing him, and he's got the rake. And then there's the sparrows going, "Come on, Peter Rabbit, you can do it." Peter never stopped running or looking behind him until he got home to the big fir tree. He was so tired that he flopped down on the nice soft sand on the floor of the rabbit hole and shut his eyes. His mother was busy cooking. She wondered what he had done with his clothes. It was the second little jacket and pair of shoes that Peter had lost in 2 weeks. There's Peter Rabbit, and he's fast asleep, and there's the other rabbits, and there's Mama Rabbit, and look, she's making dinner, and she's looking at him going, "Where are your shoes, Peter Rabbit?" That evening, Peter was not very well. His mother put him to bed and made some chamomile tea. Have you ever had chamomile tea? It's really good on a cold night. She gave a dose of it to Peter. 1 tablespoonful to be taken at bedtime, she said. But Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail had bread and milk and blackberries for supper. Ooh, that sounds good. There they are. There's Peter Rabbit in bed, and he's getting chamomile tea. And there's Flopsy and Mopsy and Cottontail, and they've got milk and a basket full of berries that they got to have for dinner. That sounds pretty good, huh? And that's the end. Peter Rabbit made it home, and he got to sleep in his bed with the chamomile tea. Well, that's the tale of Peter Rabbit. I love you, Quinn. I hope you enjoyed the book, and I'll read you another one soon. Give your mom a big hug and give your dad a big hug. And I saw the pictures of you picking flowers, and it was so cute. So I hope you go out and smell flowers and pick flowers and have a really wonderful day, because Grandpa Corey loves you this much. Bye, Quinn. I love you. See you soon.